Hi, I'm Tammy Sevcov, and this is Worth Considering, where we stretch our hearts and minds as Christians to consider another side and another point of view to help us better engage with the world around us. And today, I'm talking about a very serious and heart-wrenching topic, abortion. As Christians, it's almost presumed that we are pro-life or anti-abortion, and it stands from a basic foundation of our beliefs in God, that there are basically, I would say, four elements that undergird this reality for us. One, that there is a God and He's the creator of life. He's the author of life. Two, that God loves us, every single person. He has a love for every human being. Three, He has a plan for each of us, and it's a good plan. He's a good God who has good things for us that He wants us to fulfill. And four, that we're eternal beings, that we were created to connect with God from the very beginning, and we're not just simply flesh and bones that are born and then die, and that's the end. So our worldview demands that life is precious and that life is not ours to author nor to remove. Therefore, we can't end a life that God gives to us. It's the absolute foundation of how we think, and therefore it's hard to imagine thinking a different way. To the pro-choicer, I would even say, you don't want me to be okay with abortion. Because for me to be okay with abortion, when I have those foundational truths of God being the author of life, and that the societal pact we all have that life is sacred, right? We all treat it that way. Whether a person runs over an 85-year-old or a 5-year-old, we don't give them a different prison sentence. We understand that life by its very nature is sacred, and it's not for us to choose people's demise. So when I, as a Christian, begin to try to make it okay that people can end life, I'm basically going to demoralize myself. I'm going to begin to make it okay to judge that people should and shouldn't live. And it just gets really complex and nuanced once you understand this sort of undergirding that we all have. For those of us that believe that life begins at conception, it's actually really hard to imagine thinking a different way. But that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I want us to try and put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And I'm not just talking about the person who's in a tough spot, but actually understanding why society has such a demand and a need for abortion to be okay and to be no big deal. And also to understand the people that are dealing with these situations and where they're coming from a little bit more. And the reason isn't so that we can agree with people, but it is so that we can have real conversations and be able to have real compassion and real understanding as we go. So I want to ask you if you can put yourself into another set of shoes today. I want you to imagine being raised in a way that says there is no God. There is no purpose for your life that is predetermined. There is no person that you submit to or being that you have accountability to except for yourself. You're the master of your own destiny. You can only depend on you. You can't call out to God for help. He's not there. There isn't a God. You don't have that knowledge that there's a purpose for your life. And then in that same scenario, think in terms of being raised to believe that a baby isn't a baby until it comes out of the womb. It's not really a life. It's a growth. It's part of your own body. In a sense, before you give birth, it's like an appendix that if it gets in the way, if it's a problem, you can elect to have it removed. It's literally difficult for me to even say those words because of how deep-seated my belief in God's absolute love for every single child and every single baby is. At the same time, that comes from my relationship with God and my knowledge of God and my awareness of His goodness and who He is and the preciousness that I look at life with. So therefore, I recognize that I'm biased. See, society has this really messed up thing that it's done. It's compelled us to have sex. Now, some of you think you don't need to be compelled to have sex. But what I mean is that it used to be a question like, is sex before marriage acceptable? Is that okay? And it was something scandalous to get away with. And now our society compels us in a way, and to the point of media telling us that 15, 16-year-olds should be having sex. I mean, that's the time to kind of figure it out. Now we'll tell you to do it safely. Like, we all understand that no birth control is 100%, right? The only absolute birth control is abstinence, right? So we're telling kids, we're telling young people we wouldn't even give a license to drive to, that, experiment and figure things out. And this is the time to do this. And then outside of the bounds of like a marriage and a relationship that's long lasting. So it's totally out of the context of what it was created for. And so you're being compelled, like you're supposed to be having sex, to the point where, and I'm not even just talking about kids, I'm saying even as you grow older, you're supposed to be. And if you're not, you're weird, right? Like a virgin who's 20s, 30s, like that's weird. It's not weird, but that's what media tells us. And the more you hear these messages, the more they sink in, even if you don't mean to hear them, or if you don't mean to believe them. That's the truth of us sitting and hearing these messages over and over, right? That's why we've talked about before, Proverbs 4:20 says, guard your heart. Well, how do things get into your heart? Through your ears and your eyes. So if you're not aware of this and consciously putting in different messaging, you're going to start to believe and be sucked into that kind of perspective. And society's going to continue to push this agenda of sex being the thing to go for, the thing that will satisfy you, the thing that makes you happy, the thing that will make your heart feel good, make your body feel good. Like, this is what sex is. It's like idolized in such an extreme way in our culture that we use sex to sell everything now, from burgers to gum to perfume. I mean, my gosh, like, we use acts of intimacy to be the transactional level that tells us like what things are good for us. It is so obnoxious. It's gotten so big, and things like porn are now considered acceptable. I mean, no, that's not that big of a deal. And especially between you and your partner, you want to watch a little bit of porn that's like as an aphrodisiac. I mean, not like, this is all like, I'm going to watch other people in their most intimate situations and be acceptable. Like, some of these things, society is just so twisted. And this is where we have all these terrible porn addictions and sex addictions. And it's because we weren't made to live like this. We were made to have sex within the confines of a healthy and strong and beautiful relationship, and it to be something that is absolutely like no shame, no worries, and no worries about STDs, which are off the charts right now because, again, this is not what we were made for. And things like one night stands have become like, well, I mean, everybody, at least once in your life, you should do. I mean, think about that. The most intimate human interaction you can have, you should at least one time have with a complete stranger. I mean, it's just so stupid. And then what do we have? We have unwanted and unexpected pregnancies. Shocker. We have to believe that those lives are expendable. Those fetuses don't count. Because, I mean, otherwise, how can we continue to have that self-gratification? To serve ourselves the way society tells us we're supposed to. And within the ideas of feminism that have come in, I mean, it's not fair. Men don't have to have the same repercussions from sex that women do when it comes to pregnancy. And it's true. It is unfair. It's imbalanced. It absolutely is. One gender had to carry the unborn, and it's the privilege of us as women. But men don't have to deal with the same social ostracism. They're not noticed as physically with child, and they don't have to go through childbirth, childbearing, all the changes to their bodies. I mean, there's absolutely, it's totally unfair when you look at it from those eyes. So what do we have to do? We have to have a way that I can get rid of this and it's not a big deal. So what happens when you don't believe in a higher power, when you don't believe in a God who loves you? You have to fix everything. And we as pro-lifers can become agenda driven with this idea that, well, it's for convenience. People are killing babies for convenience. And yes, on paper, that's what it is. But when you're the 15-year-old who's told that if you don't abort the baby, you can't live at home anymore, that doesn't feel like a convenience choice. When you're the 22-year-old crack addict who's just trying to get their next hit, and you know the baby's going to be messed up anyway because of how you can't stop yourself, that doesn't feel like a convenience choice. When you're a 30-year-old divorcee whose heart is broken and life is turned upside down, and you do something stupid and end up pregnant, and you don't know how you're going to make it through the next day, it doesn't feel like a convenience choice. If you've started from the place of believing that life in the womb isn't really life, if you've started from the place of believing there is no God anyway, when you're in those situations that feel absolutely overwhelming, I mean, you want to convince yourself of the best way out of that. So regardless of how you were raised, when society is telling you it's okay, you can just get rid of this, you can just deal with this in an easier way. I'm talking to you about having a thoughtful conversation with someone who doesn't agree with how you believe. If you can't see their point of view, then you're not going to be able to help them see yours. We want to help people see the value of life. We want people to know that there is hope, that there is a plan, both for them and for their unborn child. We need to stand up for the unborn. We need to make our voice heard for those whose lives are not being honored. But we also, if we're going to change society's thinking, it's not just going to be a yelling match. It's going to be with compassion and heart and a desire to show love and help them see the difference. You know, I heard recently about an organization, I believe they're called Save the Storks, where they're offering free ultrasounds in a mobile clinic that shows up in places where abortions are offered and offers women the chance to hear their unborn heartbeat. And the testimonies I've heard have been amazing. How many, the huge percentage who decide after that one experience that they will keep their child. I love it because it was born out of somebody's heart that said if people would just understand the humanity of the life inside of them, their heart and their mind could be changed. It wasn't somebody who was screaming and yelling. It wasn't somebody who was just angry. It's someone who said, how can we make a difference? And I believe that is where, if we want true, deep change to happen, there's two things we need to do. One is pray. We have to keep praying and believing that in the spirit realm, there's things that can happen and to be changed. And two, we need to come at these issues with compassion and consideration so that people can have real conversation and have a chance to have their minds changed. If we're going to continue to yell, just like when others yell at us, we're not going to have any openness to their point of view if they're screaming and yelling, and the same thing is happening on the other side. We have to be people of ultimate compassion, who recognize maybe what the real story is sometimes, and can continue to speak up for change in our world. Thank you for watching. As always, I appreciate all the comments and I'd love to engage with your point of view on this. It's a difficult topic, but I would encourage you to like this video and share it with others that might be trying to kind of wrestle through their way in how we stand as Christians, or even as people who don't agree with the pro-life approach might be interested in having some of this discussion. But as always, let's keep our conversation, whether in person or in the comments or anywhere online, helpful and trying to have real conversation with people. Would you subscribe? Keep connected with all the great content I'm posting every single week. And remember this week that it's always worth considering another point of view.